On today's show, we're continuing with my top 30 Rangers prospects, getting into the top 10 with a couple of really interesting left-handed pitchers that epitomize what the Rangers did well pitching development-wise this season, and a top 10 prospect who came out of nowhere to jump into the top 10. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan. Covered this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into the next 6 prospects on this list, the penultimate episode of this series. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now let's pick up where we left off. Yesterday we finished up with the number 13 prospect in my top 30 Rangers prospects ahead of the 2025 season. So let's start up at number 12. Dylan Dreiling, the left-handed hitting corner outfielder slash a little bit of center fielder, 21 years old, the Rangers' second-round pick out of the 2024 draft, drafted out of the University of Tennessee, a College World Series champion, a guy who really has good bat-to-ball skills, not the loudest, toolsiest kind of player, but felt like a little bit of a safe pick there. Out of Tennessee in his final collegiate season, played 71 games, a little over 300 plate appearances, 23 home runs, hit over 340, on base over 450, slugged over 700, and 1174 OPS with the Tennessee Volunteers en route to their College World Series championship. Was drafted by the Rangers in the second round, made his pro debut in Hickory, only 24 games there, only had 1 pro home run, and, he hit the absolute crap out of that baseball, and overall offensively, not the most impressive showing. He was a lot more aggressive on the base pass in pro ball than he ever was in college. Only 5 steal attempts in his final season at college, and he had 5 stolen bases, 3 times caught stealing in just 24 games at Hickory. Had a 340 on base percentage, but the batting average was just a couple ticks below 200. The slugging percentage was below 300, just that 1 home run and 4 doubles. But again, it was his first taste of pro ball after a very long collegiate season, going all the way to the College World Series, all the way to Omaha. Lots of games for him, not just in the regular season, but in that postseason as well. What does he project as? Well, mostly a corner outfielder. I don't think he's going to spend all that much time eventually in center field, but as a pro, he played 19 games in center field, just 4 in left field. He's got really good bat-to-ball skills. The game power plays up a little bit from what the raw power is. He's not the fastest guy on the field, not the biggest arm, not the best glove, but he's solid. And he's got a real knack for hitting. The Rangers got a couple of guys like this with their second and third round picks this year. Very similar profiles. Dreiling is the one with the higher upside. And even though it wasn't the most spectacular pro debut, I mean, it's not the loud, flashy, toolsy kind of guy who, has a, really high ceiling of, potential superstar, but also maybe he could flame out in Double-A. This is a guy who I feel pretty confident is going to reach the big leagues and stick around for a little bit, because that kind of a skill set, being able to get on base, being able to, work counts. He also hits lefties pretty well as a left-handed hitter. And while I don't think he's going to be, a Brenton Doyle type out there in the outfield, he's not going to be a Mike Napoli type either. I think he'll be a average to above average corner in the outfielder. Maybe he could play a little bit in center field. I haven't seen him enough, haven't watched him enough, haven't scouted him enough in person to really get that good of a read on it. But solid first pro season, a solid floor, not the flashiest pick, but we start getting up here in the number 1 through 12 range. You start seeing, okay, these are guys who you feel pretty good about being big leaguers. Now, speaking of guys who are left-handed, we got a pair of left-handed pitchers coming up next with number 11, Kohl Drake, the local boy, the 24-year-old left-handed starting pitcher, a graduate of Saxe High School, a Wiley native. This is a guy who had an absolutely phenomenal 2024 season. Now, he was the Rangers minor league pitcher of the year. Actually, no, he was not the Rangers minor league pitcher of the year. That was Alejandro Rosario, but it was honestly close. This was one of the biggest breakouts for the Texas Rangers in their farm system this year, but he got overshadowed because there were other guys who were having great seasons pitching-wise up and down the system, but do not sleep on what Kohl Drake did. In his second pro season, he was drafted by the Rangers in the 11th round out of Walters State Community College, a small community college in Morristown, Tennessee. There have been a few big leaguers from there. He wouldn't be the first one. He actually wouldn't even be the first Rangers big leaguer out of that tiny little college. Brett Martin was the first one for the Rangers. There are also big leaguers such as Hunter Stratton, Brett Honeywell Jr., Chad Bell spent some time in the big leagues, and then Ricky Karcher as well. Now, this is a developmental win in the biggest way for the Rangers. He led the Rangers system in strikeouts with 148 strikeouts in just 106 innings. And by the way, he also had a 2.29 ERA. Spent time between three different levels, Down East, Hickory, and Frisco. Most of his innings, I should say, were spent in Down East with 43 innings there, just one out shy of that in Hickory, and then 20 and a third innings to finish off the season in Frisco. This was domination, a huge breakthrough for him. He was a guy who was throwing in the upper 80s when the Rangers scouted him. There was a really nice feature written in September for the Dallas Morning News by Sean McFarland, talking a little bit more in depth about the breakout of Kohl Drake. But he went from a guy who was throwing in the upper 80s. The Rangers took him to their pitching lab, and they did all their different tests and whatchamahoozits, and they figured out, okay, hey, if you lose 15 to 20 pounds, then you'll gain about 5 miles an hour or more on your fastball. And so he did the work. He put in the work, lost 15 to 20 pounds, and then came back throwing in the low to up, all the way up to 95. Was sitting in the upper 80s, and then now is sitting in the lower 90s, which makes his stuff play up that much more. He's also got a changeup that's really good. He was fantastic against right-handed hitters. He also has a slider and a curveball. But this is a guy who, just got great strikeout stuff. Those 148 strikeouts, that's 20th in minor league baseball. Of all of minor league baseball, of all the minor league pitchers that there are, that is the 20th most, tied with guys like Isaac Coffey of Boston, Bubba Chandler of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the only guys who are ahead of him are guys who pitched a whole lot more than 106 innings. And guys who pitched like 140, pitched 130, 145, 160, even for Austin Peterson. I mean, this is an insanely good strikeout rate. And he didn't have a crazy walk rate either. I mean, he was staying in the zone while getting good strikeout numbers. That is the sweet spot. That's the ideal. Just 2.6 walks per nine. Walk rate was highest at Frisco, but really a lot of that was just one outing. He had one outing as kind of an emergency outing in Frisco back on April 18th, where he walked 6 batters in an inning and a third in his Double-A debut. Not the cleanest. 4 runs there in those 4 outs. But then once he got back up to Double-A Frisco, he looked a whole lot better, only having a 1.50 ERA in September, where all of those starts were in Double-A Frisco. Now, there is a little bit of reliever risk because, he is a pitcher, and that is literally a risk with every single pitching prospect that's ever existed. He is a little bit on the older side. He is 24 years old, turns 25 July 17th of next year. He only has, 5 starts so far in his above single A, but this was a massive developmental win. This is not a guy who was thought of very highly, prospect status wise before this year. I think I might have had him in my top 30 at mid-season of 2023, maybe. I'm not even sure that I did. He might have just barely cracked it. I know I was at least considering it, and definitely wasn't on my radar at all before the 2023 season. An 11th round pick back in 2022. I mean, getting this kind of production from a guy like Kohl Drake, from a local kid, having a fantastic season, and really changing the thought about how good this guy could be. This is a guy with upside of mid-rotation starter. Getting that from an 11th round pick, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal work from the Rangers. Now, maybe he ends up being a just really, really nasty back-end reliever, a left-on-left destroyer. He's 6'5", 220. I don't know how much more velocity is in there if they put him in the back end of the pen. I would assume it would tick up from, the low 90s, but even with it being a fastball, averaging like 91 to 93, topping out at 95, it's still getting a lot of swings and misses in the zone and helping his other pitches play up very well as well. So he doesn't need to be throwing 99, 102, and he's still getting those swings and misses in the zone. There are some guys that are throwing, 98, 99 that aren't getting that kind of swing and miss rate in the zone. This was a great, great year for Kohl Drake, a great year for Texas Rangers pitching development, and Kohl Drake might just be one of the faces. He might be the first face you thought of the Rangers having a great pitching development season, but he definitely needs to be up there. Coming up, we'll talk about the other lefty in Frisco who had a phenomenal season, a little bit younger, a Canadian sensation, and the highest helium prospect in this Rangers system in 2024. Right after this. This show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. And I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. It brings everything together all in one place, monitors your spending, you can cancel unwanted subscriptions, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It is such a great thing. And for me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore. And I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future, so no more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we'll be back with one final episode for the week, assuming that I still have power and don't get all snowed in there. Finishing out my top 30 Rangers prospects. The next guy on this list, the lefty Canadian sensation, ironically called a southpaw, even though he is from the Great White North. That's right, it is Mitch Bratt, the no longer teenage sensation, 21 years old, drafted by the Texas Rangers in the 5th round of the 2021 draft out of Georgia Premier Academy in Statesboro, Georgia. Spent all of his childhood, grew up, was born in Canada, lived most of his life in suburban Toronto, then for his senior year went down to Georgia and got himself drafted in that 2021 draft. It looked like a phenomenal pick, basically right from the out with the Rangers. He was 17 years old when the Rangers drafted him, still very, very young for that draft, and started his career in the Arizona Complex League as a 17-year-old, only 4 games there, 6 innings, and 13 strikeouts. He looked incredibly good and didn't allow a single earned run in those first couple outings. Then next year comes along, spends the entire season at Down East, nearly 4 years younger than the average player there, had around a 2.5 ERA in 80 2/3 innings, struck out 11 per 9, and didn't walk too many his first season of pro ball. 18 years old, already getting 80 innings, 2.5 ERA, and really holding his own. Then last year, or I guess 2 years ago now, in 2023, spent the season in Hickory, had around a 3.5 ERA. A lot of that was blown up early on. Not the cleanest full year for him. In 2023, he also spent some time pitching with Team Canada in the World Baseball Classic. Yes, a guy who at that point, his highest professional level was low A, was pitching against a team of literal all-stars and Hall of Famers in Team USA. Literally sacrificed to the Wolves and got treated a about how nicely you think an all-star lineup would treat a literal teenager who had not even been to high A. But hey, he got an out. It was a sac fly. He didn't give up a home run. I think it was about 6 or 7 runs that he gave up to Team USA, but he has always been a competitor. He has always been very, very young for the level. Also pitched in the Fall League in 2023, the Arizona Fall League. Didn't have the best success there, around a 6.5 ERA in 15 innings. Struggled a bit with walks there. This year, had a little bit of hard contact when he got to Frisco, but again started in Hickory. Still 3 years younger than the average player in the Sally League, because this is his age 20 season. His age 20 season, and he's starting his second stint in Hickory. Had an ERA around 3. This year, the full composite numbers between High A and Frisco, a 3.75 ERA, 110 in the third innings, 117 strikeouts, 2.3 walks per 9, 9.5 Ks per 9. This is such an advanced kid, such a gamer. I saw him multiple different times in Frisco, and I saw him at his best, and I saw him at his worst, and he objectively had a worse year than Kohl Drake. It's not particularly close. But I think for me, watching him in person, talking to scouts who absolutely love the makeup of this kid, watching his pitch ability, he doesn't have any pitches that you consider plus, but he's got really, really good control. He's kind of Cody Bradford-esque, except Cody Bradford is 6'5", and Bratt's listed at 6'1", but just that pinpoint command, that pitch ability, and he's so young. He's so young, and he's more than held his own at every level. I mean, yeah, the stuff isn't overpowering by any means, but the dude knows how to pitch, and he's still so freaking young. He doesn't turn 22 until July 3rd. Next year. It would be really ironic if his birthday was July 4th and he was born in Canada. But this is a kid who had a really good season. The numbers don't look as impressive, especially when you look at the 5.5 ERA in Frisco. He was better than those results watching him pitch. I'm excited to see him probably start his year in Frisco, but this is a guy who, I don't think he has the upside quite as high as Kohl Drake. I don't think he has the upside of a number 3 starter. Maybe if things break really, really right, then that's what he can be. But I feel very confident this is a number 4 or a number 5. This is a guy who I'm pretty sure is going to be a consistent starter in the big leagues. He's not going to be anybody who's getting a whole lot of Cy Young votes, I don't think. I don't know if he's going to make any all-star teams, but this is a big league starter, and that is incredibly difficult to do. Something the Rangers have not done for a long, long time, and I feel very confident in what Mitch Bratt can do, what he has done so far, and how much the Rangers are believing in him. Now, next guy on this list was in that 2021 draft as well, drafted ahead of Mitch Bratt. That is the Texas native Cam Cauley, if you will, the third-round pick of that 2021 draft out of Barbers Hill High School in Mont Belvieu, Texas, just outside of Houston. Had him on the show a couple years back. Delightful kid and a delightful young player. He is very, very good. He's got two tools that are legit going to be plus to plus plus at the big league level. This kid can absolutely pick it at shortstop. There is no question. Almost every shortstop prospect has this question of, he's playing shortstop now, but can he stick around at shortstop at the big league level? There's not this question about Cam Cauley. This dude is a legit elite defender at a premium position. He's also played some second base. He also plays some third, but this is a legit shortstop. He's also got really, really good speed, and he knows how to use it on the base paths. His first pro year, he only played in 24 games in the ACL. At 18 years old, stole 10 bags in 24 games. Then the next year followed up with 38 stolen bases, 38 stolen bases, then 36 stolen bases. This year, unfortunately, a career low of just 27 stolen bases in 30 attempts. This guy also has legit pop. He's got some swing and miss to his game, but 15 home runs, a career high this year. Last year as a 20-year-old spending time between Hickory and Down East, 12 home runs. This year, most of his time at Hickory, also spent some time in the Arizona Complex League rehabbing, but overall, the offensive numbers haven't been super duper impressive. I mean, it's 708 OPS in 404 plate appearances in Hickory. It's not going to blow your socks off, but those tools establish a legit floor of this guy's at the very least going to be a big leaguer for I don't know, maybe 5-10 years, because that's how good that glove is. And if you can pick it like that, and you're also a very good base runner, and also you've got some pop in there, and he's willing to work his walks. I mean, it's not an elite walk rate or anything like that, but he will work his walks. There will also be some swing and miss. There will be some swing and miss in the zone, which leaves some question marks. But at his peak, if he becomes everything that he can be, I think his ceiling is legit everyday starting shortstop. A guy who can hit you 15, 20 home runs, steal you 30 bags, and play legit premier defense at shortstop. That's a very, very valuable tool, a very, very, very valuable player. That glove is a very, very valuable tool. And this kid's got great, great makeup. I mean, he's still 21 years old. I know this was technically his second year in Hickory. Last year in 2023, I guess in 2023, I should stop saying last year, 2023, because we are in the year 2025. And maybe at one point before June, I will realize it. But last year, 93 games, holding his own as a 21-year-old in high A, which I am now realizing that Hickory is going to go back to being low A, and the Hub City Spartanburgers are going to be high A. I don't know why they made that decision, but all that to say, none of that has to do with how freaking great Cam Cauley is. Again, you look past those numbers, you see the kind of defense that he plays. I would not be surprised if the Rangers started him in Double-A. Actually, I would be a little surprised if they started him in Double-A this year, because their starting shortstop is going to be a guy named Bam Bam Sebastian Walcott. But the glove there for Cam Cauley is legit. The speed is legit. And if he can start making a little bit more contact, this is a bona fide first division starting shortstop. And those do not grow on trees. Come over to talk about another shortstop prospect, one the Rangers did not draft and was not anywhere on my radar last year, but has shot up as the highest helium prospect in this Rangers system. Plus, one more pitcher. Talking about all that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Game Time. One of my resolutions this year is to go to more concerts. It's been a while since I've been to a concert. And one of the things that stopped me is getting tickets to those concerts can be kind of a pain, but not with Game Time. Game Time makes it easy to get tickets to all kinds of live events you're looking to go to, whether it's a baseball game, whether it's a concert, whether it's a comedy show, whether it's a musical theater performance. No matter what you're looking to get tickets to, Game Time makes it so much easier, and they now make it even easier to get tickets to your favorite live events with their new feature called Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. We'll be back one more time this week, tomorrow, talking about my top 6 Rangers prospects, finishing off this list with the big baddies at the top of this system. But a guy who was not on my top 30 ever before. This is the number 8 prospect in this Rangers system, shortstop Yolfran Castillo, a Rangers signee in the 2024 international class. Not quite even $250,000, not the biggest prospect that the Rangers signed in that class, but a guy who might just end up being the best. He definitely had the best season of any Texas Rangers signee of that international 2024 class. This is a guy who was signed out of Venezuela. He is 17 years old, listed at 6'3", 165 pounds, and he had a phenomenal first season of pro ball. He spent time between the Dominican Summer League team and the Arizona Complex League, 20 games in the Dominican where he hit .414. Yeah, that's right, batting average of .414, .552 on base percentage. Let me say that again, .552 on base percentage in 97 plate appearances. Again, small sample size, but 22 walks to 8 strikeouts. That is fantastic. A 1,024 OPS. Now, the one thing he did not do is hit for power. this was not a big old power season for him. 35 games, just a small sample size because, again, he is so young, he is so small. Does have plenty of room to add some power, but 0 home runs, 0 triples, 5 doubles for him in 35 pro games so far. Plays shortstop, plays third base, has a legit good arm, has legit instincts and good hands at shortstop and also at third base. I think probably sticks at shortstop. But again, listed at 6'3", 165 pounds. He's not very strong as of yet. He is a small child, born in 2007. My God. Again, crumbling to dust talking about these prospects in their teenage years. But the bat-to-ball skills, the plate discipline, I mean, that level of plate discipline, 22 walks and 97 plate appearances, that's really, really hard to do. I know a lot of those kids have no command down there because this is their first, pro ball at all, but he is a great judge of the strike zone. He does not swing and miss very much at all. The bat-to-ball skills are legit. He is a right-handed thrower and right-handed hitter. Does okay against both. Needs to add some more pop, but I mean the baseline for what he can be is really, really good. I mean, being a legit shortstop, probably with a good arm, with exceptional bat-to-ball skills, the power, you can add that on later. The swing decisions, the innate instinct for knowing the strike zone, a tool that, that scouts need to update the tool belt when we're talking about 5 tools. I don't think arm needs to be its own tool. A plate discipline is a very, very important tool, and this guy has got it. I mean, if you're a guy who knows the strike zone incredibly well, that is a skill that is incredibly valuable, and that alone can make you a solid big league hitter. I mean, Evan Carter's got that tool. Wyatt Langford has got that tool. I mean, heck, Shin-Soo Choo really had that tool, and it carried him for his big league career. And this is going to be a guy who has, he has decent speed. He's not an absolute burner on the base paths. 10 steals in 14 tries so far in his minor league career, but this is a guy who was not on really anybody's radar, and he just absolutely shot up lists. I mean, to the point where he is a top 10 prospect. Now, part of that is because the Ranger system isn't incredibly deep, but a large part of it is because having that kind of bat-to-ball skills, putting up these kind of numbers at such a young level is so impressive. I have no idea where he's going to start next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he's starting every day in full season ball at low A. I think that's going to be Hickory. Again, I have to keep figuring it out. As soon as I figure out which one's high A, which one's low A over there in the Carolina or Hickory or Sally League, they switch it, which is just very, very rude. But this is a guy with a ceiling of everyday starting shortstop. It's so far away. I mean, he's not even 18 years old yet. I mean, he is just so young. So young. He turns 18 in a little bit, actually a month from today as I am recording this. On February 8th, he turns 18. This is a guy who was a big developmental win so far. Still very raw, still very, very far away from the big leagues or really having any true idea of how good he could be. But for a pro debut, it's, unless he hit, 10 home runs, which then we'd be talking about him in some crazy circles. But, in terms of a pro debut, it's hard to have much better of a pro debut than Yolfran Castillo had. Now, the last prospect we're talking about today, the number 7 prospect in the Texas Rangers system ahead of this 2025 season, is right-handed pitcher Winston Santos. Now, Santos probably had the 3rd or 4th, maybe even 5th best season among Texas Rangers pitching prospects, and that is not an indictment on Winston Santos. That is a, statement of how freaking good so many different pitching prospects were. I mean, in the first half of the season, it was all about Winston Santos. I mean, Santos was absolutely dominant for Hickory. Wasn't quite as dominant once he got up to Frisco, but still, this was a great, great season for Santos. He is 22 years old, turns 23 on April 15th, signed out of the Dominican, and this is a guy who has always had a very, very good fastball, not just the velocity. I mean, it's not, he's sitting there, 98, 99, like DeGrom, but it is sitting there in the mid-90s, can touch all the way up into those upper 90s, got good control of it, but the shape of it is downright fantastic. The question with him was, can he add another pitch? And this year, the answer was very much yes. The slider got way, way better to the point where it's potentially a plus pitch. Same with that changeup. It also made some big old strides. The fastball is legitimately very, very good. Then there's some reliever risk because he is a pitcher, and that's what pitching prospects do. But this was a really, really good season for Winston Santos. And if not for the, 3, 4, 5 other guys that also had incredible seasons, we're talking a whole lot more about Winston Santos. I mean, he made it all the way up to Frisco. I think he starts the season at Frisco. He had a 2.80 ERA in 64 and a third innings in Hickory. Also 81 strikeouts, over 11 Ks per 9 at both Frisco and Hickory. This is a legit, really, really good season, especially after 2023, where he was 21 years old in Hickory, but he got pretty lit up. He did pitch a fully healthy season, not quite 100 innings, but still close to it. 110 innings for him this year, 98 and 2/3 innings last year, and then in 2022, 108 and a third innings. The durability is very, very exciting. The guy who is pitched this much is exciting. He is not having to be limited all that much. 110 innings is about what the Rangers kind of seem to cap off their guys at. I mean, 138 strikeouts was, I believe, the second best in the Rangers farm system to Kohl Drake. He is a guy who I think will start the season in Frisco. I think he has the upside of a number 3 starter, which is really, really exciting. There's not a whole lot of guys that the Rangers have had the last 5 years that have gotten to this point of being in Frisco, and you still say, yeah, I think that could be a number 3 in the big leagues. And Winston Santos is definitely that. And comparing him to Jack Leiter, I think I feel better about Winston Santos's ability to floor to be a starter than I do about Leiter. Obviously, Leiter's ceiling is a little bit higher, but Santos had a great season. And even if he does end up, say the floor right now for Winston Santos, say everything starts to fall apart a little bit, I think the worst this guy is elite nasty 2-pitch reliever. Just go straight up fastball and slider, and maybe throw that changeup in there a little bit, but mainly just those two. Gas it up into the upper 90s and be a dominant back-end relief guy, the likes of which the Rangers have not homegrown in many, many moons since the days of, Keone Kela and at times Jose Leclerc. Hopefully we will see Jose Leclerc, have success elsewhere, but this is about Winston Santos, who had a great season, really raised that floor and raised that ceiling this year in a sea of many great pitching prospect seasons. Winston Santos is definitely way up there in terms of the very, very exciting developments for the Texas Rangers, at least on the minor league side in 2024. And we'll see what it looks like in 2025. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.